Well, hello, folks. It is Tuesday, September the 10th, and there is breaking news in Formula One. I'm Will Buxton. He is Lawrence Barretto. I've just returned from where Lawrence currently is, and I still have my lanyard on, so I'll take that off because this morning Aston Martin announced news which had, of course, filtered out as it always seems to do in Formula One land. Adrian Newey has signed for Aston Martin, and Lawrence, not just to be technical director at the team, chief designer, whatever we thought it might be, but a shareholder and much, much more besides. This is a huge coup for Aston Martin.
This is a massive commitment from Aston Martin. You could even call it a game-changing commitment for Aston. I think Lawrence Stroll, when he gave a press conference earlier today, Will, obviously where you were at, and he was with Adrian Newey, and they were talking about what it means to be able to fight off, the likes of Ferrari, Williams, McLaren, and we'll get into this, but he's fought off all the competition to land Adrian, and he's got him for the long term, and critically, he's got him fully focused on the Formula One program. So he's going to be in this very factory every single day with his drawing board. He hasn't picked his office yet, but with his drawing board, and he's going to be working on making this team world champions.
Yeah, starting March the 1st, 2025, he will be the technical managing partner and a shareholder. How critical do you think that is, mate, in his decision making to come to the team? Because in the press conference, he said himself, "Listen, no one's ever offered me this kind of a position at the team because it's not just a role of employee. He's now part of the management structure." So someone was telling me earlier today, he's pretty much second only to Lawrence Stroll in terms of how the Aston Martin Formula One team will operate going forward.
Well, I think it's fascinating that given he's been in Formula One for 44 years, no one's ever offered him up until this point shareholding in the team. And it is something that Adrian has always craved. You talk about the position within this team. I think Lawrence sees it as it's him and Adrian. Like they're in this together. They're kind of co-owners, so to speak, because obviously Adrian's got this shareholding now. And I think they feel like they can together take this team to the next level. It's exactly the kind of project, from the sounds of it, that Adrian really wanted to get his teeth into. And I think he used the phrase with me in an interview that you'll see on our channels later today, where he said he's got skin in the game now because, he is invested in this team. And look, make no mistake, he wasn't lacking motivation. But I think when you are kind of fully invested in an operation, you have shares within it. And the greater the success, the better you do. Of course, it's going to motivate you even more. And I think from Adrian's perspective, now that he's got that, he's now going to have this massive team around him that he can kind of help shape the future of Aston Martin. And with the full backing critically of Lawrence Stroll, look, the factory that I'm in at the minute, they've been in phases, this is phase 3 or 4 of kind of building all of this up into the first kind of real proper purpose-built factory. He's got the money to spend, and Adrian joked that he's going to spend a bit more of it, I think, over the course of the next few years, because look, his challenge is to make this a world championship winning team.
It is. There were offers on the table from a number of other teams, a number of other places. Of course, we know Ferrari were interested in his services. James Vowles spoke publicly about Williams wanting to bring him back into the fold. But ultimately, it's been Aston Martin. Lawrence, let's rewind to how this obviously all came into being. And Adrian's decision to leave Red Bull, where he's achieved so much success earlier this year.
I think when Adrian left Red Bull, decided to leave Red Bull, and he said that he decided over the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, so we're talking sort of April time this year, it was a massive decision for him to leave because he'd been with this operation for 20 years. He'd won world championships in 2 separate phases with the team, first with Sebastian Vettel 2010 rather through to 2013, then obviously this latest phase with Max. And so for him to leave that operation, they'd let him do essentially whatever he wanted. He went off and did the Valkyrie. He's done the RB17. He's had all of these projects. He's had the resource to do it. So for him to leave a team like that and then kind of say to the rest of the grid, hey, guys, I'm available. I've still got the hunger to want to stick around. Who wants me? And to kind of, he said he was very fortunate to have so many people coming after him. You kind of mentioned a few names, Ferrari, Williams. I think he felt really quite touched that there were so many people who were really keen to get him on board. But I think it is the end of an era. isn't it, for him and Red Bull? I think you're seeing that Red Bull's form is obviously starting to dip a little bit at the minute. I'm not saying that's all down to Adrian Newey leaving, but I think that it feels like there's a changing of the guard there. And I think Adrian felt like now was the right time, based on the fact he still had the hunger to continue working in Formula One. Now was the right time to kind of take that next step.
This is it, because retirement was an option as well. And I asked him in the press conference, had it ever really properly crossed his mind? And he spoke about how, he had thought about going and just sailing around the world and kicking his feet up, because he's been at the forefront of this game for 40 years. And listen, it's no exaggeration to say that probably alongside Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, he's in the top 3 people in the paddock whose signature who you want to be at your team. He's one of those magnetic personalities that, other great engineers will want to be a part of his team. Great drivers will want to be a part of his team, because it's Adrian bloody Newey, 25 world championships. He's the most successful engineer, designer, whatever title you want to give him, this sport has ever known. Incredible. But he did have retirement. That was a possibility. But as you say, he decided really early on, look, I still have the hunger. I still want to compete. And the fact that there were all of these outfits that wanted him to come and work for them, it's fascinating that it gave him that emotional response, that feeling of kind of validity, and maybe shows how hurt he'd been by the way in which the Red Bull relationship ended. Because we know there were some comments out of Christian Horner last year saying, "Oh, Adrian he's not as influential as everybody thinks he is," and that must have hurt. And we know the story, obviously, of how that all came to pass and how the situation at Red Bull ended. I found it very interesting that he didn't mention Red Bull, or tried not to mention Red Bull by name at all today. He referred to them as the previous team or the team I'm leaving there. I think he said Red Bull once, but it felt like it was a bit of a mistake for it to slip out of his lips. He has an opportunity, though, here, Lawrence, doesn't he, to do something quite incredible. Aston Martin, as you've said, Lawrence Stroll has invested a huge amount of money in the facilities that you're sitting in at the moment. We are under a budget cap. There is only so much he can spend on the car itself. But in employing Adrian Newey, he's given himself the best opportunity to make the most of these new regulations which come in 2026, and Lawrence, regulations which Adrian Newey had questioned and wasn't even sure he wanted to be a part of the sport in 26.
Yeah, and I think you've made a number of interesting points there, Will. And I think when he was trying to make that decision throughout this press conference, and actually whenever he gives interviews, he always talks about his wife, Amanda or Mandy.
Yeah.
And he talks about how they are like a proper unit and how they work together to kind of work out what the next step is, what kind of shape their life's going to take. And I think he was talking about, am I sure I want to do the 2026 rules? Am I sure that that's the next challenge I want? He was talking about, is Red Bull the team that I want to stay with? Is Aston Martin the next project I want to take? Do we fancy moving to Italy and, join with Ferrari? I think these were all the conversations that I thought it was really nice that he just gave some space and some time to say that, I talked to my wife, we make these decisions together. And I think then you mentioned that he's been 44 years or so in Formula One with no breaks, no summer holidays, no time to go and clear his head. So I think that time from April through to kind of June, where I think it ramps up with Aston Martin, was some time to really think about things. But he was saying he's going on holiday now because he obviously can't start till March 1st next year. I think he needs that time to kind of recharge, regenerate himself, because he's mid-60s. He kind of wants to make sure that he's fighting fit for this next challenge, because he's super hungry for it. And I think it was kind of a combination of factors that kind of led to him deciding that really staying in Formula One first was the right thing to do. And then it kind of feels like, like Mattia Binotto the other day was saying, I joined Audi because this was the project that I wanted. It was from the ground up. I need to, I can really shape it. I think that Adrian Newey probably sees a lot of similarities with this project. Brand new facility. They haven't got the history of winning, and everything that Adrian's touched, he won't like to admit it because he's a very modest man, but everything he's touched has turned to gold. So every team that he's gone to, they've won world championships. I think he sees that as the next challenge that he needs to kind of keep him motivated, because I thought it was fascinating that he said that period when he was at Red Bull, and he said he couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, at the start of the hybrid era, when he knew the engine can do it and he needed other projects. I think it's fascinating that he needs that carrot almost to go, I bet you can't do this. And he's going, well, yeah, I can. And he's kind of almost challenging himself. And I think with Aston Martin, he's got that, and it's a massive task here to get these guys into World Championship shape. But he has got the resource. He's got the ultimate resource to do it.
Yeah, this is it. It's about resources. There are rumors swirling around about how much he will be paid for his role at Aston Martin, alongside, of course, the shareholding and his position on the board at the team. Lawrence Stroll was asked earlier today if he was a bargain. Let's have a little listen to Lawrence's response.
I've been in business for, oh my lord, show my age, 34, over 40 years now, and I've never been more certain. It's the best, it's not an investment, he's a shareholder and a partner. So it's the best partner I can bring into a company. We intend to be around here a very long time together. So it's relatively inexpensive for everything Adrian brings in a partnership we will have.
I love that. Relatively inexpensive. If rumors are to believe, there's 8 figures a year on that relatively inexpensive signing of Adrian Newey. Lawrence, I found it really interesting listening to Lawrence Stroll today and to Adrian Newey talking about the intentions, the desires for the team moving forward. What did you make of Lawrence's positioning today in terms of Adrian Newey and the importance that he holds at the team?
Well, firstly, I think there was a bit of a reset from Lawrence where he was kind of talking about the current performance of the team. He said they're P5 in the championship, and he said, actually, you know, considering all of the change, all of the upheaval that they've had this new factory, they were working porter cabins out in the car park here for, you know, a year or so. He was kind of saying, actually, P5 isn't so bad. And that is a bit of a reset, to be honest, from kind of what he's been saying in the years building up to it, that, you know, he wants to make this operation, which is in the year 6 or 7 of its iteration since he took over. He wants to make it a world championship winning team. So I think there was a bit of an acceptance that, you know, with all of this upheaval, it's quite hard to make that difference. What do I think of the ambition he's got with Adrian? Well, I think that he does think, we often hear Toto Wolff say there's no silver bullet. I honestly think Lawrence Stroll thinks that Adrian Newey is a silver bullet of a kind. And you can't really blame him for thinking that. Like every team that Adrian's been to, and we're going to say this a lot, I think, over the time that we're chatting today, he has made a success. He's found a way to galvanize the team working for him. He's found a way to always pinpoint a problem or see that a problem's coming 2 or 3 steps up the road and kind of prepare the team for it. It's that kind of eye, it's that magic dust that he's got where he can kind of come in and go, no, we need to do this. Or actually, you're looking at this problem, but actually if you consider that if we fix this problem, that problem won't be a problem anymore. It's that kind of bigger picture thinking, the way that his mind works. And I think that's why Lawrence Stroll said he's a bargain, because frankly, you could pay him all the money in the world and he'll be worth it if he does genuinely have the chance to turn this team around. So I think, I'm not going to say Lawrence is putting all of his eggs in the Adrian basket, because he's building a massive team here. He's gone on a massive recruitment drive. Got Andy Cowell, who kind of delivered that Mercedes power unit that was the class of the turbo hybrid era. You've got guys like Enrico Cardile, who will be joining from Ferrari, who's really helped them make some gains in the aero department. Dan Fallows, don't forget, Dan Fallows joined the team from Red Bull only a few years ago and really has helped shape this team, bring them back up the field. You've got
worked with Adrian,
these big names, even Bob Bell, you know, formerly of Mercedes, as a consultant here. They've got a lot of good people here. So I'm not saying that they think that Adrian's going to come in and it's all down to him. I think what the skill will be is kind of getting all those people working together and the problem solving and that bit of magic dust.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I was watching Fernando during the press conference, and he was kind of squirming in his seat every time Lawrence said that Adrian's signing was the most important thing, the biggest signing they'd ever made. And he's kind of think back a couple of years, and he was saying exactly the same thing about Fernando, and I felt for him because he's just like squirming in his seat, like I used to be the golden boy, and now it's Adrian. But you know, Adrian said, "Look, Fernando was our great rival for so much of his career. Fernando's been his great rival, and he's really excited to be linking up with Fernando at the team." But yeah, I mean, he is a magnetic personality, Adrian. He will draw people towards the team, and as you said, Lawrence, work with the people already there. I loved hearing from him when he was talking about how the way in which he works, some of it is in complete solitude, just in his office, drawing and just being creative. You know, that creative side of him, and he has this innate ability to sort of to see airflow. Like some people can see can see noise. Do you know what I mean? Like some people see sound as color. Adrian can sort of, he can envision and see airflow. It's incredible. Like he's an unbelievable genius. That's why everybody wants him on the team. But why has he moved? Let's hear from the man himself, Adrian Newey, from the press conference earlier today.
I've known each other off and on over the years. We often bump into each other in the gym, particularly at the Middle East and Far East races. So, as I kind of announced to everybody that I would be departing the old team, then I was very flattered to have a lot of approaches from various teams. But really, Lawrence's passion and commitment and enthusiasm is very endearing. It's very persuasive. The reality is, if you go back 20 years, then what we now call team principals are actually the owners of the teams: Frank Williams, Ron Dennis, Eddie Jordan, etc., etc. In this modern era, then Lawrence is actually unique in being the only properly active team owner, and I think that does bring it's a different feeling when you have somebody like Lawrence involved like that. It's back to the old school model, and to have the chance to be a shareholder and a partner is something that has never really hasn't been offered to me before. So it's a slightly different slant. It's one I'm very much looking forward to. It became very natural choice.
And I really enjoyed that part where he's talking about the old school nature of the way Aston Martin's run, because we think of it as a very new school team. You know, the new facilities, Lawrence being quite a new character to Formula One in terms of owning a team. But the fact that he says it's run in the old ways, you know, and we know Adrian had so much success with Ron Dennis, with Sir Frank Williams.
Yeah.
The fact that he sees them in Lawrence, I found fast. I was not expecting him to say that.
No, either was I. And what was really nice is that Eddie Jordan, who's Adrian Newey's manager, was in the room as well. And Eddie's obviously one of those great team owners who really was involved in the operation, was really there running it from top to bottom. I thought it was nice.
In the factory that used to exist on that site.
Exactly that. Exactly. And he would have seen it's changed a lot since the days of running out of that little building when it was Jordan F1. But I think it is a fascinating point that perhaps actually we haven't really given enough time to, is that Lawrence Stroll is fully embedded in this. Like, it might be, it's fair enough. Okay, he's putting the money in, but he's not putting the money in and saying, get on with it. He is the one who's had these conversations with Adrian. He was the one who said, I saw Adrian was available after he left Red Bull. I'm going after him. He was the one who organised a private tour of these facilities for him. He was the one who put the pressure on. He was the one who goes, I want this guy, and I want this girl, and I want this guy. I think it is fascinating that he is so involved, and he has found a way to kind of educate himself within Formula One. And because every business he's touched, you know, up until this point, he seemed to be able to turn around Michael Kors, Tommy Hilfiger. So for him to educate himself in Formula One, I know he's been around the sport for a while, and then realise, you know, who are the right people and what I need to do. It's not just about spending the money. I think it's a fascinating thing. And I think that Adrian, because I think he loves Formula One so much, if he feels that passion from Lawrence, then it must be genuine, right? I just don't think you can cheat that kind of passion. And it's clear that Adrian is super excited about what Lawrence is offering and the potential of this team at the minute, and the resource that he's going to give him, the facilities, you know, just the space. I think the space to be creative, I think is a really enticing project.
Does Adrian Newey need to deliver a world championship for Lance Stroll? Is that why he's been employed there? Or are we at a point now where we can move past this argument and say that Lawrence Stroll, as a businessman, is more interested in Aston Martin and Aston Martin Lagonda, the road car side, the racing side, and the success of the business, over the success of his son?
I don't think, if I'm honest, Lawrence Stroll would ever give up on the dream of helping his son Lance win the World Championship. I don't think that he'll ever give up on it. Do I think that maybe it's slanted slightly now, and actually the greatest goal is to make this a World Championship winning team? Yeah, I do probably think that that is now maybe a bigger piece of the puzzle. This is a greater focus now. Of course, he would love that to be Lance who wins that world title. Of course, he would like it to be Lance who is winning the races and being the most competitive. But I think, you know, if Adrian delivers the kind of car that he's proved he can do, you know, at Red Bull and a McLaren and a Williams, then actually Lance is a pretty handy driver, so he's probably going to be up there. But if there's a better driver alongside him, he's probably going to put the better title run together anyway. So I guess it just depends on who does the better job at the same time. But I honestly don't think he'll ever give up. He's his son, so he can never give up on that dream of helping him become world champion, because that's what he's done. He's brought him through and helped him through the junior Formula, because he would love to see it happen. Obviously, Lance has got to do that final step. He's got to go and win that title. And having Adrian here, I was hearing him talking earlier, and he was talking about that everything that Adrian touches turns to gold. And I think that there is a feeling, you know, from Lance that this is probably his best shot. He's never had a race winning car really to kind of show what he's got. I think this, from his perspective, will be the best chance that he's got. It just kind of depends on A, who's in the other car, and B, how the rest of the championship fight is going on. But look, this team, make no mistake now, if they're siding Adrian Newey, they want to win world championships. And I don't think it's at the forefront of their mind right now who that is, who is the Drivers' Championship out of that.
We can hear then from Lance Stroll and from Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin's drivers, on the signing of Adrian Newey.
Extremely exciting day, and 26 is not far away. A completely new set of regulations, a lot of opportunity, and we're really constructing an incredible team with so many talented people that are already here, and now Adrian's coming on board, so really exciting.
I would say that it was more an inspiration, and I think thanks to Adrian and his talent and cars, I think we all got better as a driver, as engineers, teams. We all had to raise the bar thanks to him to be able to compete. And I think now is an incredible day for the team. Lawrence's vision is taking shape with this building, with Adrian, with Honda, Aramco, new wind tunnel. So definitely the team of the future, I would say. And yeah, for me, it's going to be an incredible opportunity professionally to work with Adrian and to keep wearing this green color, which I'm very proud to be part of. But also it's on a personal side, an incredible opportunity to work with these people that, you can learn so much from them, And I think I was talking with Lance a few weeks ago, the incredible opportunity we have, to witness and to work with Lawrence and with everyone in Aston Martin, which definitely we are learning a lot of things on track, off track as well, and it's a part of our growth, personally as well.
Here's the fascinating thing. Christian spoke about it a little bit last year, but Adrian Newey absolutely confirmed it today. Said he's really excited to work with Fernando because they were talking middle of 2008. Red Bull had the offer on the table for Fernando to race for them in 2009, which meant he would have been front and center at that team for the championship run from 2010 onwards. How different might history have looked if Fernando had actually taken that move in 2009? Adrian Newey, Fernando Alonso, almost 20 years after the first opportunity for it to happen. It's gonna happen. Fernando's locked in until the end of 26 minimum at Aston Martin. It's a massive opportunity for one of the craziest stories in Formula One history. Imagine that, 2005, 2006 world champion, 20-year gap, Fernando fighting for the world championship again, potentially, because we know how good Adrian's cars are straight off the bat with a new set of regulations, 2026. That would be it would be the wildest story in the world. 2006 to 2026, like unimaginable.
I don't. Is that? I think I just dropped out. Sorry.
You did. We got you back, though. We got you back. Let's take it
You
from
got me back.
from the answer to the question.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing with Fernando is that he was thinking about what he wanted to do going forward. I think the performance of the car was struggling. I think he was fighting for P9, P10, and that's not really what he aspires to do. Now that you've got Adrian Newey on hand, you've got him here designing cars that Fernando will know can win world championships. I think that kind of is a bit of a game changer, because it's kind of probably going to make him think that potentially he wants to stick around for a little bit longer. So maybe we will get that opportunity to see Fernando Alonso and in an Adrian Newey world championship contending car, going on to win a world championship. I think that is becoming a reality, because look, we were watching Fernando racing out in Monza. He's lost nothing, has he? He is still at the peak of his capabilities. And what's a year and a half to wait to see if he's got a car that can go and fight for the world championship again? And, Adrian doesn't hang about. It's coming at a good time. Like March the 1st is obviously when he'll start here, but he will have a period of time to think, and there'll be, some opportunity for the team to build it in as quickly as possible into 2025. There is no reason why we couldn't see a very, very quick impact here at the team, even if they have got a massive job. They've got a new engine manufacturer coming on board as a works team. They've got to build their own gearbox and suspension for the first time, because they won't get the Mercedes one now. They split ways with them. They've got to get a new wind tunnel up and running and calibrated, and they've got to make the most of this new factory, and they've got a new design team working together. But look, I know that's a lot of ifs and buts, but look, Adrian is doing a great job, or has done, in every job he's touched. There's no reason why that effect wouldn't continue here.
Yeah, talking earlier about how Adrian said he loved the solitude of car design. The other two facets he said he loved about the engineering process and the design process, secondly, was working with a team of engineers, a team of designers, being at the head of that, listening to what they want, working with them all to create the best outcome from his ultimate brainwaves. And then the third facet of that was working with drivers and translating driver chat into engineer chat, and figuring out how to translate what the feedback from the driver is into how you create that on the car. Fascinating to listen. One thing I did love about this morning, Lawrence, was just hearing Adrian's passion again, for engineering, for design, and also hearing how much the validation meant to him when he was announced in front of the factory this morning. 800 or so of Aston Martin's employees came out and gave him a huge round of applause and all cheering for him, and you could see how much that meant to him. And it reminded me of Lewis Hamilton in Silverstone winning the Grand Prix for the first time in a couple of seasons, and the emotions that came out of Lewis on that day. And you forget that these people who have achieved so much and who we see as legends in their field, icons, the best of the best, unquestionably so, that they do question themselves, and that they do sometimes need that validation, and they do sometimes need someone to turn around and say, you're appreciated, and we are so grateful and glad that you're here.
Yeah, I think Adrian's a really modest, humble person. He doesn't like the limelight. The amount of media that he would have done today is probably more than he's done in the last 10 years. He doesn't really see himself as that kind of spokesperson who needs to be seen and to be heard publicly. But I do think that when people who work with him, people who are gonna work with him, like, there is that genuine love for wanting to team up and see what you can do together. I do agree that I think it means a lot to him. And I think when you are in that environment, you've got 800 people effectively shouting your name and clapping for you. I think after maybe if you've left Red Bull and it hadn't gone the way, maybe finished the way that you'd wanted to, of course it's going to be nice to come to a team and for them to shower you with the praise that, look, is fully deserved. He's done a phenomenal job to earn this reputation as the greatest designer ever. But I think that, he's a normal person, and who doesn't like to be, told that they're doing a good job? Who doesn't like to be told that they want to, you're a person that they want to work with? So I think that will be one of a number of factors that will really help him kind of be rejuvenated, recharged, really go into this next chapter of his career and help him kind of get the very best out of him. Because at the minute, there doesn't seem to ever be a point where it looks like he's tapering off at all. It just looks like he's just constantly going up, whether that is being applied to the RB17 road car that he's doing, whether that is another project that he's doing, whatever he seems to do, he always seems to be getting better. It doesn't feel like we've hit a flat spot yet, or it hasn't tapered out a bit. So I think from that perspective, having that support, Lawrence Stroll backing him completely, the start of the employees, I think it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, and you mentioned the RB17. He worked on the Aston Martin Valkyrie when Aston Martin had naming rights at Red Bull Racing back in the day. One thing I think is really important to point out with this is that his role at Aston Martin will be exclusively Formula One. There is no time for extracurricular activities. He will not be designing boats. He will not be designing road cars. His primary function is to take the Formula One team to the top step of the podium in the Formula One World Championship. That's it.
Yeah, it's like a new career, really, because he's going to be in the office every single day with his drawing board, but obviously integrating himself. And that was key. He said he wants to spend a lot of time getting to know the people in the team, because he does believe that this is a team effort, and hopefully he feels like he can play a good part in that. Even if he plays the ultimate golden part of it, he feels like it's part of a team. And I think that means that because he's able to fully focus on this project, or want to fully focus on this project and Formula One, and not get distracted by the other projects, I think that shows you like how long term he's looking. Like he's looking at, I want to make this team world champions. It's going to take some time, but that is the ultimate focus. There are no distractions here. It's all about the day job and focusing on it. And I think that's going to be something that he's going to take some getting used to, because he's obviously not done that for a long period of time now. But I think it is that great way of being able to really buy into a new project and to really hit the ground running, and to generally make the most of the resource. And I know when we say resource, you often think about money, and that's what we're talking about, money. But actually, it's the people, isn't it? It's about making sure that you get the very best out of the people here. And there are a ton of good people here at Aston Martin. And I think Adrian would have known that.
Let's take a look, because I think we can, at some of his, shall we say, sort of the catalogue of success for Adrian Newey in Formula One, rolling all the way back. I'm not sure if we're going to go as far back as Leighton House, but the FW14B. I mean, we could probably go a little bit before that as well. The FW, but beautiful car, brilliant. Of course, Paddy Lowe with the electronics on that car that made it unbeatable. Lawrence, he really came to everyone's attention back at Leighton House, where he was designing an incredible car that just didn't have the money, the engine to be able to make it, go up into the positions that it could and arguably should have done. But then he took those designs to Williams, and bang, the success was just there immediately.
Yeah, I think fair play to Sir Frank Williams and to Sir Patrick Head, that they really saw a talent, elsewhere on the grid, but they could see that, they didn't have the resource. It was an unreliable package, whereas Williams, I think, had been very conservative. I think it's fair to say, maybe up until that point, and they decided, look, Adrian is the one that we can give him the resource, we can give him the space to kind of to spread his wings a little bit. And I think that was a real opportunity for him to really fulfill his ultimate promise really early doors. And I think you touched on it a little bit there, Will, where it's significant that he had such a quick impact. Like it didn't take a run up. I know there were various reasons for that, the resource, the change in regulations, but he got stuck in straight away. And I think that is what is really impressive about Adrian, is his eye. He can essentially see something, not just quicker than everybody else, but just it's cleverer. Like his interpretation of it is cleverer than anyone else. And I think that time at Williams was a really good example of how you can kind of get the job done really early doors, then have a period of sustained success, because obviously through the 90s they were very, very strong. But I also think it's another example of how things change, and you need new challenges. And I think that's obviously when the McLaren perspective came into it, where the McLaren opportunity came up. Ron Dennis saw an opportunity to get him, because I think Williams weren't really involving Adrian Newey in driver decisions. Things were changing. It was amazing maybe that Frank didn't see the real potential perhaps in Adrian, like how significant he was, and maybe that should have offered him potentially more. Obviously then moved on to McLaren. And then I think during that period of time, it was another opportunity for Adrian to show just how strong he was.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, then the move from McLaren to Red Bull, and we know the incredible run of success that he has had there over the past 20 years. An amazing, storied career, not just in Formula One, of course, right at the start of his career over in IndyCar, or kart, as it was back then, working with Mario Andretti, among others, where he really, honed some of his skills. When we look, though, Lawrence, at these photographs of him and Red Bull, how much do you think his departure will affect Red Bull racing? There has been a notable tail off this season in their performance. A lot of people have, of course, pulled together the two. Adrian Newey announcing his departure and being moved on to the RB17 road car, and the car going off the boil. It's too simple, isn't it, to just simply put those two down? It's a very neat fit.
Yeah, I think that Adrian put it pretty well earlier when he talked about how when a new set of regulations come out, that's where the big body of work goes into. When you're kind of trying to get the real clever ideas into the car, you're kind of inherently building it, and then it's evolutions after that. And I think that actually what Adrian's kind of real gem of a skill is in those evolution phases is spotting the little problems, or reacting to problems, or foreseeing the problems that are happening. So I'm not saying that we can correlate directly Red Bull's form tailing off this season to obviously Adrian leaving, but I do think there will have been moments this year when they brought a new floor to the track, or they brought new aero to the track, where they can't call on Adrian to go, Adrian, come in, have a look at this, give us your thoughts. Or Adrian hasn't actively gone and said that, because obviously, like, well, of the project. So I think it has hurt Red Bull a lot. Obviously, there are a number of things happening in that team. Jonathan Wheatley's leaving shortly. As sporting director, he's going to join Audi as team principal. Rob Marshall, of course, left, and he joined McLaren, and I'm sure there is some correlation to their upturn in form there as well. So I think it's a number of factors, but I do honestly think that Adrian leaving is a significant one, because when you talk to people within that team, they talk about those phases of success. So it took him probably a little bit of time to get that Sebastian Vettel, 4 years in a row world title run of success. Took some time to get that, but it really was it building up to that. And Adrian didn't get the double diffuser for 2009, but he did build ultimately the best car that year. So you need those little details. When you don't have that person there where you've relied on it, it's going to take a bit of resetting, and I think that is hurting them now. I think it is. I don't know if you agree, but I think it is hurting them.
I do, and I also question, and it's something that has come up this year, and it comes up increasingly. He's not going to Mercedes, but the question marks over Max Verstappen's continued relationship with Red Bull, how much this year has affected his relationship with Christian Horner, with the management of the team. The Verstappen's very closely aligned with Adrian Newey. Aston Martin have Honda engines. We know the strength of that, the strength of their relationship with Max Verstappen, what potential there might be for a Verstappen to Aston Martin tie-up at some point in the future, be that in 26 or beyond, I think is tantalizing, potentially for Aston Martin. Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, they'd have to move Lance out of the way. And as you were saying, Lawrence, don't think Lawrence Stroll's going to want to do that anytime soon. But maybe if he gets the offer of Max, it might happen. But I don't think we can look past that. I don't think we can discount that now, because Lawrence Stroll is trying to amass a very serious outfit, and he has just signed the biggest player, the one that everybody wanted to sign. And let's not skirt around it. Ferrari will be devastated that they haven't managed to sign Adrian Newey. So will everybody who, even the teams who had the slimmest, most outside chance, they'll be gutted. Not just that they missed out on his services, but because somebody else has got him, and they know how powerful a tool he is.
Yeah, it's almost like a double whammy, isn't it? The first downside is you don't get it. The second downside is that someone else has got it. Someone else make a big step with it. So I think that's what's really. I think it's gonna make a lot of their rivals stand up and take notice. And look, I think what this has proved is that Lawrence Stroll will stop at nothing to try and win a world championship and make this a front-winning team. And I think you're absolutely right that we cannot discount him going after the likes of Max Verstappen, or indeed any other big names that that are stars of the future in Formula 1, because it's about winning for him. Like, he wants to win at all costs. And I think that now that they've got Adrian, it's an enticing prospect for any driver, because they know that Adrian's going to get the job done. He is. It might take some time. I'm not saying it's going to be instant like it has been a lot of time in the past, but it will eventually work. And I think that will be very attractive to a number of drivers. And it feels like maybe this is the start of a new cycle, where Aston Martin potentially start the upward trajectory and Red Bull are kind of going in the opposite direction. I mean, this is Formula One. Things are cyclical. We saw Mercedes have that run of form and they took a dip. And the Red Bull form couldn't last forever. I think most people probably thought it was going to last for a little bit longer than it ultimately has. But I think it's just a fascinating situation where one person has moved from one to the other. Maybe we might look back on this in a couple of years, Will, as a really significant moment in time.
Completely agree, Lawrence. Completely agree. Right, I'll let you pack up and go home now from Aston Martin. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you, folks, for tuning in as well. The news then, once more, Adrian Newey joins Aston Martin, not just to design their cars and they hope take them to championship success, but as a shareholder and one of the most important people in the new Aston Martin F1 team infrastructure. We cannot wait to see everything that stands ahead for him and the team. But for now, from Lawrence at Aston Martin and from me, just back at home, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next race.